Good morning. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the first annual Bio Conference held here at this beautiful campus center at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and we're deeply grateful for their willingness to host us. Speaking of hosting, I'm Ray Shepard. I'm a member of the Boston Biographers group, and our group has the pleasure of being the host committee to you. There are 160 of us who have registered, and some are still trying to find the location, but they will be here shortly, and we're very grateful. What we're doing here, we're gathered here today to talk about the art and craft of biography. Whether we are an unpublished, soon-to-be published, or a veteran and author of some 20 biographies, we are here to talk about the things that our spouses and our family members and partners in our homes are tired of listening to. We come from all over, as far west as we come from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. We come from as far north as Canada and as far south as Chile. We come from Ireland, England, and the Netherlands. And again, we're here to talk about what we hold so dear. As a member of the Boston group, I want to encourage you as you leave this conference to think about starting your own local area bio group. I have found it to be extremely supportive. And in your packet, I have put together a list of suggestions, recommendations that came in from the Washington group, from the LA group, and of course from the Boston group in terms of ideas that will help you start a group. And I would also like to recognize Barbara and Robin from our Washington, D.C. group. Would you stand? Are you in the room, please? Robin Roche and Barbara Burkett. They are your hosts next year in Washington, D.C. So this may be our first annual, but we're for real. And 2012, our plan is to be in London. So start saving. And finally, I would like to, it's my pleasure. First of all, let me just, again, thank you for being part of this group. And now I would like to introduce our interim president. She is vivacious, energetic, and brilliant, Debby Applegate.
That was the very best introduction I have ever received, Ray. Thank you. It is a genuine honor to welcome everyone here to the first annual meeting of Biographers International Organization. I want to thank Ray, who did so much of the work. I want to echo his appreciation for the Boston Biography Group, who really did more work than I could have imagined to set this up so beautifully. I want to thank, again, the University of Massachusetts, who have been incredibly generous. They are taping this. They have given us this beautiful site. And above all, I want to thank Jamie McGrath-Morris, who has been the administrative genius behind all this. Is Jamie actually in the room, or is he still registering people? It is no small thing to create an institution from scratch, especially one with such grand ambitions, but it is much easier if you begin with such a diverse and dedicated core of volunteers and supporters. And above all, I want to thank everyone who came here, often from so far away and at such great expense. There would be nothing here if you were not here, so thank you. My pleasure today in being here and my gratitude towards you is very personal, I must say. For me, the creation of an organization devoted to the craft of biography is literally a dream come true. Like many people here, I did not plan on spending my life in what my husband refers to as the bottomless pit of biography writing. He's over there, feel free to quote him. Like many of us, I began by falling in love with a historic figure, a figure that I felt absolutely must be brought to life back for today's readers. Unfortunately, I was not magic, and so I had no idea about how to go about resurrecting a life. I didn't know anyone who had written a biography. I had no idea how to write a proposal or to find an agent or a publisher. Frankly, my project would have probably died right then and there had I not just stumbled upon someone who offered to help me. Well, he didn't really offer. He gave in. The historian Johnny MacFarragher, who had recently braved the disapproval of his academic colleagues to write a popular biography of Daniel Boone. Professor Farragher didn't know me at all, but when I showed up on his doorstep, he was generous enough to offer advice and to make the introductions that led me to an agent, who is also here, and who then eventually led me to a contract, an actual book contract. Now, the happy ending to this story was, unfortunately, ruined by actually having to write the book after I signed the contract. Again, here I've started, again, I found myself on my own, a common enough experience in a publishing industry filled, of course, with overworked editors. The first 2 chapters I turned into my editor were an absolute disaster, and I do not exaggerate. It was clear to one and all that I had absolutely no idea how to craft a compelling story out of these mountains of evidence that I'd unearthed. My grand editor, who was obviously used to working with people who already knew how to write, was absolutely stunned into silence by their awfulness. And again, I do not exaggerate. So I wrangled a few bits of feedback, very baffled feedback from her. And so, okay, all right, with all the enthusiasm of honest ignorance, I was like, okay, I get it, I see it. I need to lay out a plot, draw identifiable characters, and engage the reader's emotions. Okay, so can you give me some advice about how to do that? There was absolute dead silence on the other end of the phone line until finally she says, very slowly, dismally, I would say, well, I don't know what to tell you. Those were the last words we ever spoke. Some months later, my book contract was summarily canceled. Bloody but unbowed, I vowed myself to teach myself how to write a biography. Now, I should say bloody but unbowed because there is nothing like having to pay back your advance to keep your eye on the ball. So I spent months, I decided to teach myself. I spent months reading everything I could get my hands on about biography writing. Literary criticism, psychoanalytic theories, essays, and memoirs by biographers. But none of them, interesting as they were, none of them had much to say about, say, how to outline a chapter, how to select evidence, or how to compose a well-paced scene. In desperation, finally, I decided to turn to other genres, which, unlike biography, were brimming with advice manuals. I studied primers on how to write thrillers and mysteries and romances, literary fiction, and even erotica, which is surprisingly helpful if you're trying to get in the habit of writing with all 5 senses. Important for scene setting. So then I began to adapt all these techniques to the strictures of nonfiction. And in fact, in many ways, it was kind of fun. And yet, the whole time, I kept thinking, if only I just had a few other biographers to talk to, all of this would have been so much easier, so much faster, and so much less lonely. So, finally, my manuscript was done and awaiting birth with a new publisher. That year, the 6 months, it came out near the end of 2006. In 2007, 284,370 books were published. And I had only one goal. That was to make sure that my book did not drown like a trace in this deluge. So once again, I was frustrated to find that there was no place to go for practical, strategic advice about how to market a biography to reviewers or booksellers or readers. Finally, I was willing to hustle, and I couldn't really figure out how. So once again, I turned to the kindness of strangers. I begged aid from anyone who would talk to me, every biographer, every fellow traveler, and eventually I cobbled together the basics of a self-run marketing campaign. It didn't turn me into Dan Brown, but it did keep me from the tragedy of the remainder bin, mostly. So, now I apologize for dwelling so long in the realm of autobiography. Frankly, I had originally imagined a very lofty and inspiring address about the past and future of biography, and it was going to be very inspirational. But I decided to dwell on my personal story because I think the fact that we are here today at the founding meeting of Biographers International Organization is for me and for those of you who share my feelings a genuine happy ending. At every point in the process of writing my first book, whether researching, writing, or selling, I longed for the opportunity to learn from the experience of other biographers. So I volunteered to help build this organization because I want to make sure that my next book is born among friends and colleagues rather than strangers, no matter how kind they might be. Of course, I should say that since that time, 2007, the landscape for biographers has improved a great deal. The rising interest in biography has produced a number of great new institutions and programs in Amsterdam, Edinburgh, Hawaii, New York. For those of you who live outside of these glamorous spots, there are now many excellent websites and guidebooks on writing and marketing biography and narrative nonfiction, including terrific ones by Nigel Hamilton, Carl Rollison, Lisa Warren, and Susan Rabiner, all of whom are here today. But all the advice manuals and all the chat rooms in the world cannot equal the value of real, breathing biographers coming together to build their own network of knowledge, resources, and mutual aid. Biography is one of the oldest and most popular of literary genres, and of course, interest in biography has blossomed in the last decade. Yet of all the major literary genres, biography still remains one of the least developed professionally. Here today in Boston, we begin to change all that. I know we're running tight for time, but I wanted to just say that I asked Jamie a few days ago if he could give me a list of the kind of ideas that people have been generating about what bio might do for them and for us for future goals and projects. So here's just a quick list, just within the last 6 months of possible goals. Finding ways to promote the use of biography in education. Ending the practice of grouping biographies with autobiography and memoir in the publishing world. Finding money to support working biographers. Creating a virtual research library. Sponsoring conferences and workshops. Arranging to archive the papers of other biographers, which I believe to be incredibly valuable. Creating a speakers bureau. Creating a clearinghouse of future projects that agents can tap into. And of course, these are only the big picture items. We all have a million small problems that we could solve a lot better by talking to each other. What I like about this list, besides its sense of wide open possibilities, is that each one of these ideas has the capacity to improve us both as individual writers and to improve the collective good of our profession. I think the two go hand in hand. So let me close by urging you to return the membership form in your packet. I should add that if you itemize your taxes, all dues will count as a business expense and all donations will count as a charitable gift. But I'm sure all biographers know that. Anything's an expense. Second, I urge you to find your areas of interest and get involved. Whether you think of yourself as an artist, a craftsperson, a family historian, an entrepreneur, we need your talents. Right now, this room is filled with strangers, although already I feel like I know many more of you. But by the time we reconvene for this closing session, I hope this room will be filled with friends and colleagues. So, we come to the business portion of the meeting, which will be very short. Our first task is to adopt our bylaws, which you should have in your packet. Proposed bylaws were first examined at BIO's founding meeting in New York in the spring of 2009. A committee was then formed to revise the bylaws based on comments from the larger gathering. Later that year, the bylaws were accepted in principle by means of an internet vote. Following that vote, a bylaws committee, working with Sarah Baldwin, the most excellent proofreader of the Biographers Crafts newsletter, prepared this final draft. As the bylaws may be amended in the future and have been extensively reviewed by a wide and representative group, I would like to move for their adoption by voice vote. All in favor of ratifying the bylaws, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, that passes. And again, there is always opportunity for change, so thank you for voting it so quickly. Next, we need to elect our leaders. For the past year, Bio has operated with an interim board and officers. They have guided the organization and put on this conference. As their final act, they have proposed a slate of officers and board members. Over the past few months, nominations were solicited in the Biographers Craft newsletter and as well by members of the interim board. We have produced a slate of officers that includes 2 members from the outside of the United States, which I think is so impressive for our first year, and that is a number that we really hope to increase in coming years. So, here's the slate. Could you please stand as I call your name, those of you who are here? For the office of President, Nigel Hamilton. For the office of Vice President, Charles J. Shields. The proposed board members are Carol DeBoer Langworthy. Is she here? Thank you. Gail Feldman. Ann Heller. Kitty Kelly. I believe will be here at some point. Andrew Lowney. Paul Mayer Jr. I don't believe is here. Hans Renders. Carl Rollison. Stacy Schiff, who I believe is not here. And Will Swift. Oh, last one. And Steve Weinberg. Thanks, Steve. Didn't mean to. Okay, thank you. Once elected, the board, again, thank you to those of you who have volunteered. Once elected, the board will select a treasurer and a secretary. The board will also select 5 members whose first term will last only 1 year rather than 2, so that we can ensure that only half the board is up for election at any given time. Okay? All in favor of electing this slate, say aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. I salute our new officers and our governing board, and I wish them great luck in leading Bio in the future. This brings the business portion of our meeting to an end. The first panels will begin at 9 a.m. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see everyone at the closing ceremony.